The desert is eternal. It swallows dynasties, it erases names, it wears down stone, and yet it preserves fragments, fragments of memory, fragments of horror. And among those fragments lies one of the most unsettling stories in Egypt's long history. A story that is not carved in triumph on temple walls, not sung in hymns to the gods, but whispered in fear, recorded by outsiders, and carried forward as rumor that refused to die. It is the story of Psamtik III, the last pharaoh of the 26th dynasty, a man whose reign lasted only months, a king broken by Persia's conquest, and a father remembered not for his love, but for the terrible choice he made when he ordered his own son buried alive. To understand the scale of this tragedy, we must first understand the Egypt into which Psamtik was born. It was no longer the Egypt of golden ages, of Ramses the Great razing temples and crushing Hittite armies. This was a weary Egypt. By the 7th and 6th centuries BCE, foreign armies had already marched across the Nile Valley more than once. Assyrians had stormed into the land, Nubians had ruled as black pharaohs, and Libyan warlords had carved up the delta into petty kingdoms. When Psamtik was born, Egypt was in fragile hands. His father, Amasis II, had seized the throne in a palace coup, overthrowing a prince who was despised by the army. Amasis was no fool. He knew Egypt could no longer stand alone. He sought allies from abroad, forming bonds with the rising Greek world. Greek mercenaries fought in his armies, Greek traders filled his ports, Greek influence seeped into Egypt's politics. For a time, Amasis stabilized the kingdom. He enriched temples, curried favor with priests, and presented himself as the defender of Egyptian tradition, even while relying on foreigners to hold his throne. Psamtik, as crown prince, grew up watching this balancing act. He saw how survival depended not on divine destiny, but on careful diplomacy and ruthless pragmatism. But the storm was already rising in the east. Persia, under Cyrus the Great, had devoured the old powers of the Near East. Babylon fell, Lydia fell. One by one, kingdoms that had once dominated the region were swallowed up. Egypt stood as the last great prize. When Amasis died in 526 BCE, his young son Psamtik inherited not only the crown, but also a looming war with an empire far stronger than his own. Psamtik's reign lasted barely half a year before it was tested in the most brutal way possible. Cambyses II, son of Cyrus, marched his armies into the Sinai, aiming for Egypt's throat. The decisive clash came at Pelusium, the eastern gateway to the Nile Delta. Ancient accounts, most famously by Herodotus, claim Cambyses used sacred animals, cats, ibises, even dogs, painted on shields and driven before his army, knowing Egyptians would hesitate to harm creatures sacred to their gods. Whether this was clever propaganda or a fragment of truth, the result was the same. The Persian army smashed through Egyptian defenses. At Pelusium, the Nile turned red with blood. Psamtik's soldiers broke and scattered. Memphis, the capital, soon fell. Psamtik himself was captured alive, taken in chains before Cambyses. The conqueror mocked him, humiliated him, stripped him not only of his throne, but of his dignity. He was forced to witness his nobles executed, his daughter enslaved, and, in some accounts, his son paraded before him as a prisoner. Psamtik endured it all with a mask of silence. Herodotus tells us he did not weep when his daughter was led away to servitude, nor when his friends were killed. Only when he saw a beggar, one of his people, pleading for bread, did his tears finally fall. This was the end of independent Egypt. Psamtik's dynasty was extinguished in months. Cambyses declared himself pharaoh.
donning the crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt, offering sacrifices to gods he did not believe in, ruling as a foreigner over a conquered land. But the story of Psamtik did not end with defeat, for in the shadows of history, a darker tale unfolded, one that has haunted his memory ever since. According to fragments of rumor, to whispers carried by Greeks and Persians, Psamtik committed an act so unthinkable it seemed beyond belief. In his final days, cornered, paranoid, consumed by despair, he ordered that his own son be buried alive. Why? The reasons given are many, none certain, all terrifying. Some say Psamtik feared Cambyses would keep the boy alive as a puppet king, a false pharaoh raised under Persian control to pacify the Egyptians. By burying him, Psamtik denied Cambyses a tool of propaganda. Others suggest Psamtik had descended into madness, his mind shattered by humiliation and loss, and in that madness he lashed out even at his own blood. Still others propose it was an act of twisted mercy. Better for the child to die quickly in Egyptian soil than live as a slave under Persian rule. Imagine the moment. The palace is no longer his. Persian soldiers stalk the halls, their foreign accents echoing in chambers once sacred to the gods. Egyptians whisper in fear. Somewhere in the dim corridors, Psamtik takes his son aside. The boy is young, perhaps too young to understand the weight of what is happening. He clings to his father's robe, asking questions, frightened, trusting. Servants obey, as they always have, even though their hands tremble. A pit is dug. Torches flicker against walls carved with images of gods who seem to look away. The boy cries out. Sand covers his feet, then his chest, then his face. His voice muffles, then disappears. Silence falls, broken only by the shuffle of feet as the pit is closed. A dynasty ends not with coronation, but with suffocation. It is almost too much to believe, and yet the tale persisted. Was it Greek invention, a story told to blacken Egypt's memory? Was it Persian slander, designed to show that Egypt's last king was a monster unworthy of pity? Or was it true, an act so horrific that even enemies could not invent it without trembling? What is undeniable is that Psamtik was executed soon after. Some sources say Cambyses forced him to drink bull blood, a poison that burned from within. His body was cast aside, his name nearly erased. His reign was over before it had truly begun. But legends grow in the cracks of history. For Egyptians living under Persian occupation, the story of Psamtik's son became a whispered reminder of how fragile power truly was. It was not simply a tale of conquest, but a tale of obsession, the obsession of a man who could not bear the thought of losing control, who would rather destroy his bloodline than see it tainted. Psamtik III's story has been dissected by historians for centuries. Some see him as a tragic figure, a young king crushed by forces beyond his control. Others view him as a coward, a man who failed his people and resorted to cruelty even toward his own child. Yet others suggest he was a victim twice over, first of Persia's armies, then of history's storytellers, caught between propaganda and myth. Still, the image endures. The image of a boy sinking beneath the sands at his father's command. The image of a pharaoh so consumed by fear that he turned on the very flesh of his flesh. And in that image lies a deeper truth, that kingship in Egypt was never merely about ruling a land. It was about embodying order against chaos, ma'at against iset. When Psamtik ordered his son buried, he reversed that order. He embraced chaos. He became the destroyer of his own line. Today his name is little known. Psamtik III is not remembered like Ramses or Thutmose or even Cleopatra. His reign was too short, his power too weak, his story too grim. But for those who look closely, his ghost lingers in the ruins of Memphis, where Persians once paraded their victory, in the sands of Pelusium, still red in imagination with the blood of the fallen, in the whispered legends of fathers and sons, of power and paranoia, of love twisted into fear. Perhaps the greatest cruelty of all is that we will never know the full truth. Was Psamtik truly the pharaoh who buried his son alive, or was he the victim of stories invented by conquerors?